Later this evening, Tori Amos and 3T check into the Hotel Babylon at 20 past midnight. Good evening, this is HTV.
From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
Revealed tonight the new link to Gulf War syndrome. Why the firebombers targeted Paddy Ashdown. Life sentence for the department store knife man. And Gene Kelly, a legend of song and dance, has died. Good evening. News at 10 has new evidence tonight pointing to a connection between the chemicals and vaccines given to Gulf War servicemen and women and the ill health many have complained of since. It's from the United States and from tests on animals. An anti-nerve gas agent produced chronic fatigue. That agent, when combined with other chemicals the veterans were exposed to, produced paralysis or worse. There's also statistical evidence now of a disproportionate number of birth defects in the children of veterans. Norman Reese, who's been following the Gulf War syndrome story for News at 10, has the details.
In this US government laboratory, they're injecting rats with an anti-nerve gas agent. It's the same chemical given in tablet form to the 51,000 British troops who went to the Gulf.
At about the same dose that the soldiers took orally in the Persian Gulf, we'll be looking at the long-term behavioral effects.
And the results so far? The rats are developing chronic fatigue similar to that experienced by many Gulf War veterans.
We are seeing a slight decrease in activity when these animals are treated with the pyridostigmine.
ITN has learned that another scientific study, soon to be published, shows that when laboratory animals are exposed to anti-nerve gas tablets and other chemicals that were common in the Gulf, they suffered paralysis and even death.
Gas! Gas! Gas!
It's the first evidence that could confirm what most vets believe. Their problems are due to the cocktail of tablets and inoculations they were given.
But when they give you those series of shots, and then on top of it, you get shots for botulism and anthrax and nerve agent pills. And in Great Britain, they had a whole series of other types of shots. Those were not studied. Our government never studied the protocols of the cocktail mix of drugs and its effect upon the human body.
Is that at a good angle for you?
But the studies are beginning to come in now. This vet center in New Jersey is playing the lead role in the 33 separate research programs nationwide. Here too, chemicals are a major focus.
My hope is that we will identify again something environmental, because why has chronic fatigue syndrome appeared in little mini epidemics? And why does someone get it who's perfectly well, all of a sudden is struck with it? Perhaps there is some toxic factor.
These children have many internal defects.
Alarm bells are ringing too at the nation's birth defect center. It's toxic chemicals that produce children like this. It's known as Goldenhar syndrome, and they're being born to Gulf War families in disturbing numbers.
We already have 11 cases and possibly a 12th in our database out of 215 reports. So that represents a significant number of Goldenhar cases in the Gulf War veterans' children.
When there's emergency, it's like chaos in here.
Little Casey Minns has Goldenhar. One of his ears is missing and many of his organs aren't connected. Casey's attached to a feeding tube 18 hours a day and has to have his waste suctioned away. The Minns believe it's all down to his dad's service in the Gulf.
Goldenhar syndrome is not a genetic syndrome. It's not passed down through family genes. It's caused by environmental reasons, chemicals, exposures.
It's still early days, but researchers here are pointing increasingly to a chemical cocktail as the likeliest explanation for Gulf War syndrome. Norman Reese, News at 10, Washington.
After seeing our report, the Ministry of Defense said tonight it welcomed and would fully examine any evidence which may be added to its ongoing program of medical studies. It said it was very sympathetic to Gulf War veterans and their children who have health problems and would maintain an open mind on the subject. Hilary Meredith, a lawyer for the 900 Gulf War veterans and their families here, said she believed the findings represented a major breakthrough in their fight for compensation. The Liberal Democrat leader Paddy Ashdown's car was firebombed in his Yeovil constituency today, and police disclosed there had been a number of threats against his property. Mr. Ashdown has been campaigning against racism in Yeovil, but police said they didn't believe there was any racial motive in today's attack. Tonight they were questioning 3 young men. Robin White reports from Somerset.
Totally destroyed by the heat of the fire. Mr. Ashdown's car was set alight in a small garage behind his house in the middle of the night. By the time the fire brigade got there, the vehicle had been gutted. Mr. Ashdown and his wife were asleep nearby, but woken by the commotion. No one was injured. This morning he was clearly angry, but saying little.
I don't intend to make any statement on this. It's a matter for criminal investigation and the courts.
Can I just ask you, are you shocked, though? Just from a personal point of view.
It's not a terribly nice thing to happen to one, but I am not shocked, neither am I deterred.
Police have been conducting house-to-house inquiries. They say they're looking for 2 local men seen acting suspiciously in the area.
This certainly is a case of arson. We're investigating it, and I have to say that this is the most despicable of crimes.
This fire was the 3rd incident involving Mr. Ashdown since he began an investigation into alleged racist attacks on restaurants in nearby Yeovil. In one such attack, a petrol bomb was thrown through the window of this kebab house. Staff at this tandoori restaurant have been threatened and attacked in the past. In December, a knife was allegedly drawn against Mr. Ashdown. A man has since been charged in connection with that incident. This afternoon, the Liberal Democrat leader was visiting a local junior school, apparently unconcerned and helping children to plant a time capsule. Mr. Ashdown has always spurned the personal protection available to senior political figures. Robin White, News at 10.
The great American dancer and entertainer Gene Kelly died in his sleep in Los Angeles today at the age of 83. He appeared in dozens of films, but most famously in An American in Paris and Singing in the Rain. ITN's Caroline Kerr looks back on a brilliant career.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again.
This is what Gene Kelly will be remembered for, the movie which produced Hollywood's most legendary dance routine. But the man who gave the world Singing in the Rain always claimed he never wanted to be a dancer.
In truth, I never wanted to be a dancer. That's true. My whole ambition was to play shortstop for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Throughout his long career, Gene Kelly was often compared with his contemporary Fred Astaire, but he was generous about his rival.
When you dance with Fred Astaire, you really have to be on your toes. This number from Ziegfeld Follies was the only time we've had a chance to work together. But I'd change my name to Ginger if we could do it again.
New York, the wonderful town. The Bronx is up and the Battery town.
He also performed alongside Frank Sinatra, winning Oscars and even directing in the films in which they co-starred. Gene Kelly, a singer, dancer, choreographer and director, and Hollywood great.
Gene Kelly, who died today. The Heritage Secretary, Virginia Bottomley, gave a strong hint today that the government won't stop satellite TV buying exclusive rights to big sporting events. She said ill-thought-out changes in the law would deprive sport of the income it needs. But she's putting the subject up for general discussion. Adrian Britton reports.
In calling for a national debate, the Heritage Secretary appeared to be calling for fair play, inviting all sides to argue their case.
It's not an area where you want a knee-jerk, ill-thought-out response. The government wants to know the views of the different parties. We must look at the complexity, we must look at the technical difficulties and the different interests involved.
Yet later, in a discussion document, Mrs. Bottomley indicated she was against the introduction of curbs, saying the government is concerned that ill-thought-through changes could deprive sports of a primary source of income. This would stifle investment in new community facilities and in talented young people. Any move to ban exclusive buy-ups of the big sporting events would be fiercely opposed by satellite TV, arguing the casualty would be British sport itself.
Who do you think is funding the building of stadia, the grassroots development, the reversing of the talent flow of best players instead of all going to Europe, coming from Europe to the UK. It's television rights, it's the marketplace.
Satellite and cable channels have 9% of the overall TV audience, compared to 91% for the 4 main channels. The All-Party Initiative would ban Sky Sports and the other subscription channels from securing 8 top events mainly shown on the BBC or ITV. The biggest events listed are the World Cup and the Olympic Games. The English and Scottish FA Cup finals are also on the list. So is Wimbledon. In cricket, home test matches would be protected. And in horse racing, there'd be the Grand National and the Derby. Crown jewel events which ITV claim belong to the nation.
There are sporting events which are bigger than the sport, bigger than for the fans themselves, bigger than for the sporting bodies. They occupy a place in our culture which is much greater than that, and of course there's a good reason therefore why those should be available to everybody.
Opposition peers are furious that the government's document on TV sport has come just a few days before the